Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Guile Treatment. No special guest this week, but we have some cool stuff to talk about anyway.
We do.
I guess if we want to start it off, Chris has some news about the 7th Cross drafts, which I think is what, next week? No,
It's this weekend. Yeah.
Okay, this weekend.
17th through the 19th is this weekend. So Sean Kennedy posted in the Jasco Scout Facebook page because people were wondering, well, what are we going to do? Because there's no 2 dots in the packs and they're only, box toppers. And we found out that the chibi characters too. So surprise everyone, they're the chibi characters. So he posted that normal UFS draft rules apply. So you draft your 6 packs. So after you draft your 6 packs, you can borrow, if you haven't drafted a character, you can borrow one of the full art select format characters. And then, what?
Even if you have one, I feel like even if you did, you should draft your characters and still get it.
Yeah, you want to get as many characters as possible in this one, guys. But you will get, whoever character you pick for your 1 dot, you will get one of the box toppers and the chibi 2 dot to add into your deck. So you'll have at least 2 copies of the 2 dot. It depends on if maybe you are a bigger store and you open more boxes for the pre-release. Maybe you can get another copy or 2, or I guess it's up to the store or scout running it. That if you want to give out more chibis,
the scout or the TO.
Yeah, you can. If you want to give everyone a set of chibis to play with, but they just got to return it. That's fine too. They also said that they're if it's gonna store by store basis, but if you want to go over the turbo deck limit, like 40, if you want to go to a 50 card limit just to accommodate the character cards, that's fine too. They're not gonna. It's not like a sanctioned event, so you can kind of do whatever you want in a way. But at least you guys know that was just posted as of today, because he got the draft format rules in front of him, and we'll all see it on Friday and Saturday. And so it's just to alleviate some stress, because I know a lot of people were wondering, well, what if I want to play Remulus, or if I want to play Taisei and I can't do anything because I don't have a 2 dot or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, there you go, kids. I'm gonna find the other stuff we were gonna talk about.
Good luck with Taisei, though. just draft every copy of the 1 dot that you see.
I would say so, and then maybe you can sweet talk your TO into giving you multiple copies of the 2 dot, because
you don't need
you only need one, right? Yeah. You don't need one with him, so
you start with a 2 dot and then you need more 1s.
Oh, is that what it is?
If you get multiple 2s, it doesn't matter, because you have to the R is you basically pick a 1 dot, like a different, or you pick a 2 dot that's equipped and that becomes your starting character, and then you remove a 1 dot.
Oh,
so you could have 3 2 dots stacked. It doesn't matter.
Oh, okay, you need the 1 dots. Okay, so you're what, a 5-hander then with 8 life?
No. I'm saying you'll still get your 1 dot to start as.
Yeah.
And then you'll get your 2 dot to start stacked.
Oh,
but if you want to keep using the R, you need to find more copies of the 1 dot.
Ah, gotcha. So there's a way you could do it. So cool. Let me double check this.
But yeah, stuff like Remy, Solinka.
Solinka's a big one. Yeah, because I was like, well, I guess, or people who want to play Zolt and they want to stack Zolt.
Zolt probably doesn't really need.
He doesn't need it, but you could also just play the 2 dot if you wanted to.
Yeah, you could do. Solinka and Zolt are definitely both characters that you could just play the 2.
Yeah, exactly. So
honestly, in draft, you could probably just play the 2 dot of Torn. If you're not starting with a bunch of 1 dots in play, it really doesn't matter.
Sure. But what happens if you do draft all the 1 dot Torns?
Well, then you're definitely awesome.
Then you're winning. Then
in Bebop draft, I played against somebody who had 4 copies of Ed 9, and it was I did not win.
The only time I tried to draft Ed 9, there was no Ed 9s in our packs, so I got hosed big time. So it was rough. Should have just switched to Vicious then and just played bad cards. So, but yeah. Anywho. Okay, so that's the news. There's the pre-releases this weekend. You got that. And then in Rockford, we have a Premier Store event on Saturday. So if you're in the area, we starting at about 3:15. It is turbo format, because we have the pre-release directly after. So we need to get it done fast. So that's the whole reason why we're doing a turbo format. Instead of doing the pre-release as the Premier Store event. A lot of people didn't like that because some people got to go to the pre-release the day before and they figured out what to draft well, and some people won the event because they knew to play Mitsurugi with 7 face splitters and all the punishment times. Present company, maybe not that guy. Maybe. But so moving on, we got I guess like we were kind of slow for news because we're in between PTCs this week, and we're still kind of waiting on the World Teams Champs to get back to us about being on the show. And next week we have Barry Everson on, and we're going to be doing our send off to Rise of the Masters before it rotates out. We're probably going to pour one out for the boys. And then, so
pour out an E-tank.
Ooh, good one. So we're going to talk about some questions for newer players. I posted something on Facebook about we're looking to do for newer players that are new to the traveling circuit, that some topics they want to be covered or questions to be answered. So we have kind of 2 halves of the same episode. We have people who are kind of just starting out who want to get a local going, and then we have like the people who want to get their feet wet into the traveling circuit. I believe that's what
I think the big thing is like there are definitely like more newer players now than I think there have been at a lot of points, you know, in like the past couple. Well, I mean, since sort of like Bebop and MK, like there have been a decent number of new players, and just honestly, just sort of like the shifting dynamics. I think that, you know, there are some groups that have kind of like that were realistically like populated by like a couple people that were just, you know, older players who are just hanging on, who have sort of like moved on, and then you have like a lot of these groups popping up that are like almost entirely new players. And so there's just sort of like not as much familiarity with just where to find stuff, like what, you know, sort of common practices are and whatnot. So yeah,
I know that when I talk to new players, my first thing is to always have them go to their local gaming store. If their local gaming store is, I guess, worth their salt as a gaming store, they should be able to order it through their distributor. Any type of UFS. You can always order it straight through Jasco too. Your store can. They prefer you to go through a distributor because it's just a way that they can track their boxes sold, and they can get, like, you know, they can see how their margins are and all that fun stuff.
But it's also one of those things where it's like if the distributors are moving product, the distributors are happy.
Yes, so, exactly. Yeah. But like worst case scenario, you can always go through Jasco. Or you can buy stuff online. There are multiple online retailers that sell like sealed boxes, singles, all that stuff too.
I think we're almost a little ahead in talking about singles.
Yeah.
I think that the biggest, you know, like for just the people that are like, hey, like, you know, I found these starters and like I'm interested in this game and like I want people to play with. I think basically, right, like you said, it's sort of like, you know, try to find like your local store. And realistically, like the easiest time you're gonna have is if you have like, you know, a group of friends or like, you know, gamers from like some other game that are all sort of interested. Like, you know, if you can sort of have like an instant bake like play group as soon as a store picks it up, like that's obviously going to help because
especially
the store's going to move product. Like they're going to be happy about it. Like you can probably get like a night pretty easily that you're going to have events. Just that kind of stuff.
Especially if it's stuff like a license that people are interested in, like a Mortal Kombat, like a Soul Calibur. I know we got a new guy because Soul Calibur came back. He's gone hard into the game. He bought the store out of product a couple weeks ago, and all that. And especially if this next set that's after 7th Cross is quite possibly something that we all want is Yu Yu Hakusho. I may have like 4 more people who want to play. So, but anywho, that's besides the point. It's getting ahead of ourselves. So.
Yeah, but the thing is like if you're smaller, you know, if you're just basically like one person or like 2 or 3 or something like that, I think you really need to find a store that is like engaged. I think you want to find either like a store owner or like, you know, an employee who's like always there or like a manager, you know, depending on how sort of like
how it's ran.
Well, or how big it is, the like structure is of the store. Because sort of like a game like this doesn't really like sell itself. It's smaller, like people don't really like haven't really heard about it. I mean, right, you could like see a pack up on like the shelf, but like, but the thing is, if someone sees the pack and starts asking questions and no one can answer their questions, like it's going to be tough.
Yep.
And a lot of the sort of like, like small, like basically the games that aren't like Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, like the games that everybody knows.
Mm-hmm.
The other games, like the ones that I see thrive are the ones where the people who like work at the store like play them.
Yeah, exactly. That's one big thing.
People at the store like them. The people at the store like they recommend them to people. If they play, like they can always give them sort of like advice on building a deck.
Mm-hmm.
They probably have a deck. If if it's slow, they can play a game with somebody. I think that's one of the big things about Miles' success with like Legendary Wolf is that he runs it. He's there. He's like pushing the game on like people who everybody who comes in and it's just like asking about something. He's like, well, let me tell you about UFS.
Yeah.
And I think it seems like some of the stores in Indy that have sort of picked up like have owners like this that are like very into the game. That they play it, like they're interested in it. They want to see they're sort of invested in the game doing well. And like I just I don't think you can necessarily find that like everywhere.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that's an important aspect of like starting a group from scratch that you don't already have players.
Yeah.
Because like that thing is you can run a demo day, but like you're not going to be at the store like every single day, like all the time to like answer people's questions.
Yeah, I guess that kind of can lead into if your owner or your store employees don't play, you can at least demo to them and explain to them kind of the basics of the game to where they can explain to, Joe Schmo or Annie Oakley or whoever comes in or whatever, like, hey, this game is this, we have these cool licenses. It's like a fighting game, card game, blah, 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 blah. You just go through the whole spiel, and then if like, hey, you're interested, you just, they can set up a demo or whatever. If the store owner is comfortable with demoing, that's cool. If not, tell them, hey, this is when we play weekly. If you have a weekly night or they can call you or you at home and be like, hey, person wants to learn. Honestly, like, it only takes two people to start a play group, really, honestly. It's kind of hard as you by yourself because you don't want to sit there and be like, oh, I'm just playing solitaire, but we started out as a two-man play group. It was me and Trent, and then we got Nate, and then we got Tyler, and then Tyler got all his friends, and then we are what we are now.
So that's the other thing too is, like for like the smaller play groups, especially like starting out, even if sort of like if you get a store that's like ordering product, like even if they're not like totally engaged, like we sort of were talking about, if you have a night that you're like, this is the night we have for UFS. If you're on like the board, if you're on like the website or whatever they have, that's just like, we got Friday Night Magic, we got like, whatever tournaments on like, we got our like Pokemon tournament on like, Sunday afternoon for the kids. Like if you have your like UFS like Tuesday night or something, you need to be there like every single Tuesday.
You need to be there every week
because. Every time that like somebody comes in and is like, oh, like what's this, and they're like, oh, well, they play Tuesday. If that person comes in Tuesday and you aren't there, they're never coming back. They might, but like it's not a good look. And if you really, really want this play group to happen, like you got to be there.
You definitely have to put the work in because not everyone can have, like let's use Miles as an example. Like that, they have a tremendous just player factory in that store. Like they just grab everybody, so not everyone can have that. So you actually have to, you can't rely on your store all the time to do it. But
here's the thing, that store, like that's a UFS store.
Oh, I understand that.
I mean
that's true.
Like we had a store that we played at sometime and it was like a buddy fight store where it's like if you wanted to play buddy fight, like you would go there. Like
my store,
there was always somebody there to play. Like there were, that was what they did. Like they had multiple nights a week where they did events. And like if you have something like that, like you're gonna do great. Like, that's fine.
Yeah. If you're able to like maybe schedule, if say you got your friends who are interested in the game and you're starting to play and you have a night, try to pick a night that, like, say you don't want to do it on Friday because it's Friday Night Magic, so you're not going to pull any of the Magic guys for the most part. You may get a couple onlookers, but they may sit down for a demo, but you're not going to pull them away. Unless they're already on their way out, right?
That's definitely. I think that's something too. Is if your store does other like card games, I think you want to try to do the demos like before those other things start, so that as those people come in, like you can sort of like they already play cards, so like they're already like somewhat interested. It's a card game, like they play other card games. So like for sure, like doing demos, like. If they have other sort of like card game events, like those are the times where that would be good to sort of be around.
Yeah.
I think sort of like the next step beyond that is, if you sort of have your like play group coming, you're usually having like 4, 5, 6 people show up or something like that. And especially if you're like consistently moving like a box or two like every couple weeks, like. That's when you should definitely like talk to the store about doing the Premier store. And so that like it's as far as I know, it's pretty simple. Like the owner basically contacts somebody at Jasco. Is it Sean? Is it someone else?
I think it's Sean.
Presumably, it's on the website.
It's on the website. It is. I know that.
And you basically just like contact them, like give them the information. I think you like take a picture, like. They'll sort of walk you through the process.
Yeah, they'll walk
I think you sort of like show them your stock, like show them like the display, all that stuff, and they'll basically like give you some free products, and there's a couple conditions involved, but like that's really like helpful. Like it gets you free product, it gets you prize support for like locals. You can do pre-release events. Like you can host PTCs like in the future. So it's really sort of like a step that you want to do if like the store is serious about like being involved in UFS and having like UFS events. Like you're definitely going to want to look into that program as well. I guess for sort of like the individual players, like obviously if you can, I would say like buy product, buy card, like singles and stuff from your local store. To some degree. Obviously, like, if there's something that's, like, astronomically priced and, like, you get other stuff from them, like, sure, do whatever. But, like, the whole thing is, like, if you're not buying stuff from your store and you're buying everything online, like...
Yeah, your store suffers.
They're not gonna sell stuff to you. Like, they're gonna stop carrying the game. Like, they need to be moving the product to, like, keep it in stock.
And sometimes, I know what I did here when I was selling singles through my stores, I would be under the online price for singles just because I want to pass a deal on to my players. So... Normally, your store shouldn't be outrageously price gouging you.
Right.
So
I mean, it depends. Right. I mean, I think these days, like because of like TCG Player, it's pretty easy to get kind of like a pulse on like what things are going for.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of actual singles, for like, I mean, I've seen people that are just like, where do I even go find singles? So there's like 2 really big ones, which are Legendary Wolf Games and Rochester CCG. They're definitely like the biggest in the U.S. There's a few, I think, in Canada that it kind of like moves around. I don't know if Cart even has the latest set yet.
I know
that's Carte Blanche Hobbies.
Yeah.
There was something. What was it? It was Mythic something or I don't know. It was something, but I don't think they're carrying it anymore.
I know. There's a new one,
like
right?
White Fang or something.
White Fang's like the new one, right? Yeah, that's the new one.
There's always TCG Player. I know Chris sells on TCG Player. Barrett sells on TCG Player. Like
I know
Eric, there's a ton of people.
There's a bunch of players that sell on TCG Player. Also, there's Bearded Collectibles in the UK, I believe. I believe he sells out of the UK. They're pretty competitively priced to stateside if you don't mind waiting like an extra week, I guess, because it's always just shipping.
And that's overseas. The thing too is obviously like. Anytime you're buying from if you're buying from the UK, if you're buying from Canada, like in the US, like there's going to be shipping things. Like sometimes shipping is a little expensive because it is whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes if you buy over a certain amount, like shipping is awful because like
Yeah.
they basically have to declare it as they send it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But
Also, the U.S. based shops, they can usually get you cards within days. If you, it's best not to wait till the last minute to order stuff. Like you have a PTC coming up, you're always gonna want to order it way in advance. But sometimes if they're going to the PTC, you can also have them bring it and you can pick it up there as well.
Yeah.
So they're pretty good about that too. I've done that with both stores before.
I mean, also like both like I know the legendary guys like commonly say this. Like I'm not quite sure like how Rochester is about their stock. But a lot of times, like if there's something that isn't in stock, like if you send them a message and ask about it, like they might have it like in backlog somewhere. Like, but you know, who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, I guess you know the other thing I'll see is like new people like, well, what should I get?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one too.
And like the biggest thing, if you are just sort of starting out, like get some starters. You know, like pick which like. Basically, like if like go to UFS Ultra, I guess that's another thing.
I guess
like,
another thing too. Yeah, that's like the biggest
like
database.
A really good sort of database, and like deck building engine.
Yeah,
that's free, simple, and you know if you're like starting out, I guess like look at the characters, especially the characters from Cowboy Bebop to current time.
Yeah,
and like basically like pick your favorite one. And like figure out like the symbol that you want to play, and if you're not sure, you know, like talk to some people about it.
You can always go onto Facebook or the Discord if you can get onto that. There's tons of veteran players who will be happy to help you out.
So like they can definitely give you advice about like what sets to sort of target.
Yep.
If you're more like not dead set on just building like one deck, if you kind of want to start a collection, I think the like common uncommon sets that people sell like are definitely a good place to start. I know when I got in, like that's what we did for all the King of Fighter stuff is we got like play sets of commons and uncommons, and then we're like, you know, we'll figure out rares and ultra rares later.
And I know
they usually go for what, like between like 15 to like 20, 25.
Yeah, I know right now currently I'm gonna do some priceless shilling because I know we don't have a legendary wolf player on our show right now, but they actually have a bundle right now for, I believe it's $25. You get 250 commons and uncommons. I believe you also get 25 rares and 4 random ultra rares for $25. I believe that's what they posted a couple weeks ago. It's a pretty good deal. I even thought about doing it just to take a shot and see what ultra rares I get, but I don't really need anything, so I'm not going to do it. But if you're new to the game, and I know that's something I had a new guy start. He's like, well, what should I get? I'm like, well, you're new. Get anything from the latest 4 or 5 sets, you know, and just roll with that. And then get the MK turbo decks, get the Bebop turbo decks, and you're set, man. And, you know, we have enough commons and uncommons here locally that we can just give them to people and, you know, whatever. Yeah. So just let us know what you want to play and we'll build it. Normally, if you have a veteran player available to you, usually if they have the cards, you can ask them, hey man, can you build this deck for me? So I want to try it out before I buy it, because I have a guy who wants to play a deck with missile launcher in it. He's like, but I don't want to spend 30 40 bucks on cards if I don't like it. And I'm like, dude, it's missile launcher.
30 or 40.
yeah, I guess whatever, you know. But I guess that's another thing we could touch on too, is that normally the ultra rare price for this game isn't that bad. It's just like the big, like the money cards, like you're prepared.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going up.
Yeah.
Just because
the game's picking up and growing. Yeah. Because I know this latest set, I believe Subblade and Krita Yuga were like the big ones, right? And then like Guilty Throne.
Ghost Thief.
Yeah. Oh, Moonset, stuff like that. So, it's kind of hard to judge what's going to be like the big card coming out of a new set. So it's just generally, they have these new things called player kits where you get 6 boxes and you get, this set, you get 1 of each ultra rare. So that was a huge surprise and much to our enjoyment that, hey man, you buy that.
I mean, I think that sort of depends. You know, I don't think that's like a jumping in place though.
No. I mean, like if you have like a small group, like if you have 4 people and you do that, you each get 2 boxes and you split up the ultra rares. That's really not that bad.
Sure. Like if you're like in a position where you're gonna like split some stuff for sure, like do it. I mean, honestly, like so Scott and I like basically like split a kit like each set that comes out just because that's really the only way we're gonna get stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And for this set because it's in. They basically there's a tournament that is legal like the day of, and we weren't like sure if we were going to be able to get stuff from like Rochester or Legendary Wolf because we're going to be like on the road. So it's just like, what are we going to do? Get it shipped to our hotel? Like, it's not that nice hotel. Like, we got some mail for
we got a package waiting.
Yeah. So we actually have it pre-ordered from the store.
Oh, really?
So
wow.
We're gonna go on Friday, pick it up like at the store.
Yeah.
Like locally.
And then open all your stuff.
Open it up like at a hotel. Yeah.
That's not bad. That's cool though. At least
for
accommodating.
like, I mean, I guess money for them, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think beyond that, right, you just sort of have like your local events, getting your cards, figuring out like what you want to play.
I guess we can lead into with locals. I guess that is your best deck testing places, I guess, unless you play pickup games or maybe you have Tabletop Simulator. I guess we can talk about some online avenues too.
I was gonna say like that. I feel like that's sort of right for like preparing for like bigger events.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Like locals like isn't quite like up to snuff.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess locals you could play your fun decks. Maybe you have an idea or whatever. Because you usually don't want to trounce your locals unless your locals are all hyper competitive. I guess so.
Yeah, Chris, God.
Yeah, I know. Hey, man, it's not my fault if they can't stop Grant Padley with everywhere. It's not my fault. And then you give them the tech to beat it. So it's not my fault. But anywho, Aaron beat my ass this Sunday with Lilith Krita Yuga. So I was like, I got fucking wrecked. It was gross. I was like, oh wow, supplementing Blade, Krita Yuga, and Lilith is something. So, but yeah. So I don't know. Is there anything else we want to touch on before we move into like prepping for a bigger event or anything else? I don't
think so.
I don't think so either.
I mean, I think that's really like the main stuff.
Yeah.
So, I guess
one last thing is too. You always want to try to at least have a relationship with Jasco. Like if you're not, I mean, like the numbers on the back of the pack. You can always call Jason. Jason will pick up his phone. You can at least leave a message and he'll at least call you back. That usually will happen. Or you can email any of the employees, such and such at jascogames.com. I Facebook Messenger them all the time. Do I get answered? Not really, but sometimes I do. But they're very accommodating to their player base, and not many companies that run a card game are. I guess it's a plus. So
I mean, I guess that's sort of the other thing too. Like in terms of like online resources of like players. I mean, if you're watching this, you probably already know. But I mean, basically, like Facebook, like the big ones are going to be like UFS Rockford, UFS Community, like NA. There's a lot of like local ones I know, like for various different spots. Like there's stuff in the UK. Like
there's a I think the Canadian one just popped back up again. It's being Steve Jennings is doing work in Toronto now, so that one's actually been pretty live lately. So Canada, you have a page.
So those are big. There's also like the Discord, which. There's always, like, somebody in there, like, it's about 50-50 about, whether or not they're talking about UFS. Right now, it's pretty good just because there's a new set coming out, so there's, like, a lot of sort of theory crafting going on.
Yeah, there's multiple channels, too. So, like, General is General, and then there's also...
There are all the channels.
Yeah, General is every channel, but there are sub-channels to... And then we have a Reddit page, too. That actually has a lot of.
I know Kevin wants the Reddit to be a real thing.
I actually like the Reddit page a lot. We actually have a lot of people on there who don't have a Facebook account, but they use Reddit. So we actually get another like subset of people, players on that who don't like the Facebook. Thing is,
if you Reddit, for sure, check out the UFS Reddit. I'm like, there are at least a couple people that really want it to do well. So I'm sure you can. I'm sure they are like. Checking in on it. So.
It is r/UFSCCG is for you Reddit people. So, but I think if you're probably watching this, you may already know about it. But whatever. We're trying to.
I forgot about it, so there you go.
There you go. We're helping you out, Rob. I usually post all the videos on there. I know there's some deck. I know Rio did his Goro deck evolution profile thing on there.
I think Tim usually puts his set reviews.
Oh, yeah. Tim does the Lord's work, and he's done all of his 7 Cross things on there. He's done set reviews. He's done his I don't know, card reviews. Like he went, I think for Mortal Kombat, he went card for everybody, which is kind of neat. So he does some pretty in-depth reviews. Our former world champion, back to back former world champion. So. But
still a world champion in my heart.
He is. He's the world champ. I don't know, man. Like we got some good world champs on this show, so we've had some really nice world champs. So they're very nice and accommodating, and you can always. That's another thing too. If you know a player by a name, like a Tim Keefe, like a Dave Wagner, Miles Tyler, me or Rob, don't be afraid to send anybody a message about, hey man, like. I don't know what to do with this deck. We may not answer you right away, but we'll get to you. We promise. Usually we'll get to you. I usually try to answer right away, but if I'm at work, usually I have to wait. So, but they're very, very accommodating. The veteran players are very accommodating to newer players because newer players are how this game grows, and
Yep.
Had a new face win Worlds this year, so it wasn't
and a new face win Nationals last year.
Yeah,
there you
new
go.
face, yeah. Playing for about a year, won Nationals. Yep, with Rob's most hated character. But yeah, anywho.
But yeah, I guess so. That's the thing, right? Is so if you're sort of picking it up and you're thinking about going to like a PTC or Worlds or Nationals or whatever, and you're not quite sure like how you're gonna do it. I mean, I guess the biggest thing is, I guess like Worlds and Nationals, like. You don't need an invite. You don't need. They're free. So like, there's no entry fee or anything.
All you gotta do is get there.
Nice.
That's the only thing. You just gotta get there.
Yeah. There's a bit of one for PTCs just because there's other stuff involved. Yeah. Like they're run at stores. So
they're run at stores.
I mean, the big thing is just obviously getting there. If it's close, like for sure drive. I know a lot of people sort of like carpool. I mean. Just makes sense. Like you get a car full of people, split gas, tolls, whatever. Depending on where it is, like there's definitely like some places where if you know some of the people, or depending, like there might be like people that'll let people like players like crash on the couch or whatever.
Yeah. Yep.
Or like you'll probably just have to get a hotel. I mean, I know we get hotels at most of the things we go at. Just try to find something like cheap. Try to find something that we can cancel if something happens. Yeah. Like at the last minute.
Yep.
And yeah, it's just kind of one of those things. Like I guess you basically decide like, do you want to save a lot of money or do you want to have like a bed to yourself?
I know that. So yeah, it also depends on if you really want that bed to yourself, and if you don't win the tournament the night before to win the bed. Maybe you if you got the money, you might as well you can always just go get a hotel. They're usually
I'm not talking about Rockford, Chris. I'm talking about getting a hotel.
I know in general, I know, but in Rockford, I host 6 to 7 people, and they have to fight it out for the bed if the defending champion isn't staying at the house. So that's usually a ruckus the night before. So. But like I know, like Miles and Danny, they host a bunch of people. Usually, if you know people who live in that area. Touch base with them. Usually they'll let you stay if they're not already full up. I'm usually booked a year in advance, so I'm sorry.
Yeah. And it depends. I mean, like people who have houses are in a different position than like people who are just like renting.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, for sure. It just depends on a case by case basis.
But yeah, I mean, like I know, like oftentimes before tournaments, like I'll see people who are traveling and they're basically like, hey, does anyone have a room in a hotel? Like, whatever. So that's the thing is like. You can bunk up with people you don't even know that well.
I think that was the first time I ever met Church and Rodney. And I stayed with them in a hotel room in Nashville.
Yeah. So, like, and that's just kind of the deal, man. Like, I've shared beds. Like, I don't think I've slept on the floor yet. because
That's a Thomas Gordon thing.
That's the Thomas Gordon special right there.
Yes,
He'll roll up with the inflatable mattress. Like,
yes, he will.
Like, dude,
his hobo style. You got that right.
It's 4 a.m. Like, why didn't you get here 3 hours, like 3 or 4 hours ago?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, cheap hotels are cheap hotels, man. Like,
usually, also, if you're flying into somewhere, also try to book. You can usually book your hotel, flight, and car sometimes, and you get to save some money. It just depends on what site you're using or whatever.
Yeah.
I know when I do Vegas, I usually book my car and flight, and it saves me, like $30-$40 overall, which is still nice, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing too is definitely like getting in touch with the locals. Like, they might have like some recommendations about where to stay, where to eat, stuff like that. Frequently, like before tournaments, like the Friday night, like, there might be a get together somewhere, so you can like go and like, especially if you don't know anybody, like, you'll sort of know where to show up to like meet people beforehand, sort of like just see some faces that you'll see that you'll probably play the next day, so that it could be like, oh hey, like I saw you last night at wherever. And like that'll just sort of like help you get like a bit more integrated. I know, like, right, when we started out, I don't think we really knew like anybody at all. I mean, right, the first time I went down to Atlanta, like, I'd like recognized people that I'd seen like in some of the New York tournaments that we had like driven to. And then like other people who I recognized sort of by name, just basically because it's Atlanta. So there's, like half a dozen people down there that are like on cardboard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, everybody's pretty personable. Like,
yeah. Also, if it's your first time at an event, introduce yourself, walk up, or people will actually probably come up to you too. And if you, that's the best way to do it. Just walk up, tell people, hey man, I'm new. Nice to meet you. I'm so and so, whatever. I can't tell you how many people have come up to me since we've been doing this show at events and being like, hey Chris, I'm so and so. Nice to meet you. Appreciate your content, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, Rob's not here because he's sad. So, and I'm sad because Rob's not here. So. We couldn't.
And you can introduce yourself to me, and I promise I will forget your name.
I will. I promise I do that as well, and then I figure it out later. I learn by saying your name over and over again. That's the way I do it. So, but yeah, so you got your place to stay. You say your PTC's like a couple weeks out. You need to prep for it. Like Rob said, your locals, especially if you're a newer group, may not be the best, but there are different avenues.
I mean, the thing is like, given the choice, I'd always rather just play in person.
Sure, me too.
Like, you can sort of, talk to other people and maybe sort of get some advice on a deck list. I mean, I don't, like, the thing is, I don't mind, like, especially if it's a character that other people have already played. Going on Ultra, going on, like, the Jaska website at, like, the top lists from previous PTCs and just look at a deck and, like, it may be similar to what you're playing, and if so, you can look through some cards and be like, oh, that's a good card, like, I don't have that in here, like, that's a good idea. Or you might see some stuff and you're like, oh man, this guy isn't running like this card I am, which, it might be new, it might be like something else, and, like, you can sort of innovate on it. But, right, like, the biggest thing is just going to be getting a bunch of games, because you really want to just sort of be familiar with your deck. I would say if you're getting ready for an event, it might be nice to try to get your locals to sort of play timed rounds.
Yeah.
I know that can, for me, be sort of like exasperating sometimes in like locals, like when we have them. That, you'll just sort of be playing like a casual game and it just takes forever.
Yeah.
Just people are sort of like, someone will come up, like, you'll talk to them, like, you'll really sort of, like, mull over, like, well, is this the right play? Is that the right play? Like, whatever. Like, you just sort of take a lot longer with decisions, and, you can have just sort of, like, a 2 or 3 game set that ends up being, like, an hour and a half.
2 hours,
and, you're just like, I mean, this is cool, like, I'm killing some time, like, I'm having fun, but it's definitely like a very different situation. Like at a PTC, it's like you want to make your decisions, you want to know what you want to do, you want to like go quick because you want to be like, you don't want to be going to time like all the time.
Yep.
You know, you don't want to play that like 40-minute game one and lose and just be like,
you have to hurry up and play game two in 20 minutes.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like, so, I would just say like really right, like familiarity with your deck is going to be like the biggest thing. You know, sort of like recognizing like your triggers, your play lines, just so that you can sort of go through them quicker. So you don't have to, I guess so you just don't have to like waste time like thinking about like what you should do.
That kind of to piggyback on that, I prefer having timed rounds at locals because it prepares you for those those bigger events, and also allows you to learn how to manage the clock better. So you're not sitting there trying to decide, well, do I use this enhance? And you take 5 minutes to decide it. It's like, it shouldn't take you that long to decide if you want to use that enhance or not. You should learn how to pace yourself properly within a timed round. And that also can lead to having, not a lot of draws or quicker games. If you lose game one, you lose it in 20 minutes instead of 40, and then you have a chance to come back. Not saying you're going to lose always in game one, but.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, there's definitely some online play options. If you really want to, like, test against other people or test against, like, some different decks that maybe, like, your locals aren't playing. Or if you want to play against cards that you don't, so, like, for instance, if none of your locals have, like, I don't know, like, you like you said, like a bunch of missile launchers or something, and you're like, well, I really want to test against this like Lilith deck that has missile launchers in it, and like we don't really want to like proxy or whatever. So like you can always do it online.
Also,
the big one.
Also, currently, right now on Tabletop Simulator, which is one of the online avenues, it already has 7th Cross uploaded to it, so you can get familiar with the new set of cards like weeks before, or a week or two, or whenever it gets uploaded on there before anyone else can. So you can also be ahead of the game.
Typically, we'll pretty much get the set uploaded like within a day or two after whenever like the spoilers, whenever the full set is like released in like images, like he'll be able to get that up like pretty quick because. Tabletop Simulator is a little bit easier than like Octagon in terms of like modifying stuff. Octagon's more of like a system, so you need to like do all this stuff. It needs to have the text. It's a lot more involved.
Yes.
But those are basically the two primary options there in Tabletop Simulator.
The big difference is Octagon is free, and Tabletop Simulator will cost you money. So, and it's only a one-time fee, but it's usually if you catch it on sale, it's usually about $10 roughly, I believe. And so it's a really good tool. It's a lot of fun. We have Tim Keefe who plays on it and streams on it constantly. I've played. That's how I tested for Worlds on tabletop, and it's just a lot of fun. It's a neat physics engine, so you get to you can flip the table whenever you get pissed. It's pretty fun. Yeah, it's a good.
I believe that's the primary selling point of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
That at any point you can just flip
the table and it just flies into outer space. Yeah, it's pretty fun. Yeah, it's neat.
So yeah, I mean, like you said, the biggest difference is that tabletop costs money, but Octagon's free. That said, like tabletop is typically like more updated, so like if you're okay, I mean, I guess ideally you probably get both, and like that way you could just play with whatever the other person wants to play. If you're looking for games, there might be some like Facebook stuff or whatever, but there is definitely like channels devoted to it on like the Discord. So like I know pretty much every day, someone like, hey, who wants to get a game? And then 2 or 3 people are like, oh, I will. And then if you didn't get the game and you wanted it, like there might be someone else who's like, oh, like I can play right now. So
they're usually, and I've actually seen people on all hours of the day. Even at night, there's been some West Coasters up on pretty late. I know Church doesn't sleep, so he'll be up and play sometimes. So, it's a pretty good tool that if you are testing for like a bigger event is something. If you really want to do well at these events, you kind of want to put forth the effort and maybe spend that little bit of money to get tabletop and learn how to and get better at the game. Because
I mean, that's the big thing. It's like if if you're like newer and starting out, like if you don't really have like the play group that you feel is going like, I mean, I'm not saying like necessarily do that before your first tournament, but you know, if you're sort of going and you're feeling like you're not showing up like as prepared as like other people, like that might be when you start to like look at playing like online a bit more. And even just that's the thing is if you sort of join like hang out in some of these online places like long enough, like you know, you'll definitely like see some deck lists, like you know, you can ask some questions, get some recommendations, like
you will learn.
Yeah.
You will get learned. Trust me.
But that's like the easiest way to get better is just like get your ass beat a lot.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that too. Learn. Get your ass beat enough to where you figure out how to beat the deck, and then you start beating the deck to where the person that was beating your ass, you're beating their ass. So
yeah,
that's a big thing, you know.
Yeah.
So
I mean, obviously, I guess like ideally you don't start out like getting beat by the best deck.
Yeah.
Because plenty of people get beat that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. I think that's sort of like, I mean, deck building is its own issue.
Yeah.
I would say like the first step is figure out how to like kill people, and then once you can do that, figure out how to not die.
We do have a prior Guile Treatment episode about deck building. I will link it in the description box below. So if you people who are interested in deck building,
probably about 10 hours long. I believe you'll be more confused than you are now.
It may be like an hour and a half. I believe Tamron Cardwell was on that episode. I believe, because Tam was on that episode. So there's a lot of good info on that one. I believe we talk a lot about inspiration, and being inspired. So. Yes, but yeah. So you got your deck. You're tested. You think you're ready for this event. What is the next logical step? It's to go play in that set event. So you get there. You got your hotel room. You figure out the night before. Hey, everyone's meeting at this restaurant and all that stuff. So
I mean, I guess in terms of like actual like day of the event, I mean, first thing is obviously like try to get enough sleep beforehand.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's a good one. Like, don't be tired. If you have time for breakfast, get breakfast. I never have time for breakfast because I want to get more sleep. So I'm always like cracked for the first couple rounds until we get the lunch break. Then I get some food, feel a lot better, play better.
You're not like that around when you come in for Rockford. And make sure you guys are up early and we go get breakfast in the morning. So don't worry about that. I got you.
Yeah, so. and then I'm tired. So.
Yeah, so whatever.
But yeah, I mean, get there. You know, it should be online somewhere, like what time, like everything's kicking off.
Usually the store will open, and usually the time said is when registration starts, and then you usually have an hour before the tournament actually starts.
That's the thing is you want to get there probably like close to whatever they say the time is. Like you gotta go, you gotta pay, you gotta get your deck sheet to register. Like, I mean, I guess you can write it up beforehand. Like I think there's places where you can print it out.
Which leads to a good point. James asked on Facebook, is it best to handwrite it or get it printed out off an Ultra?
Here's the thing. So I don't know if Ultra uses the new deck list or not.
I don't know either offhand. Yeah. I don't think so.
So
I'm not entirely sure.
Right. So that's one thing. I mean, I guess we could ask that guy.
Yeah.
But I would just handwrite it because a lot of times, like, it might, like you might change it. There might be like some differences.
I know usually I'll change a card the night before, and then my Ultra never is the same again. So it's
I mean, matches. I would say the biggest thing too is like basically like sort your deck and then write it as you're like looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really like assume like, oh, it's this. Like, look at the card. Yep. Is it this? If you really want to take no chances, give your deck and your list to somebody else, and they will go through it like card by card and just basically be like, this card, how many? Right. And so on. Like, just basically trade with like a friend where they'll look at yours, you'll look at theirs. Like, you can basically like sign off on it, and then, like you should be good.
Normally, don't forget to sign your deck list because that's the number one thing people forget to do. You have to actually sign it saying that there's a line in the box. So.
They'll bring it to you. Right?
Yeah, they'll bring it to you too.
You'll turn it in and they'll be like, you didn't sign it.
You didn't sign it. Yeah. That's what I did at Worlds. I forgot to sign it.
But, yeah, I guess for your character, make sure it has the right number of dots.
That is also true.
But but yeah, I mean that's really the biggest thing. I mean that and like sideboard is either 0 or 8.
Yep.
But in terms of getting like the deck list, for sure, like just get it correct. Don't get a game loss in tops if you make tops.
Yep.
But yeah, other than that, I mean, just playing. There's sort of a bit of a back and forth on Chris's thread about judges. And that's something too. I guess I would stress for like new players is if something's happening and like you have it like. If it's an interaction you haven't seen before, you're unfamiliar with, if it's a card that you don't know, like, I mean, that's the biggest thing is if your opponent puts down a card and you've never seen that card before,
read it,
pick it up,
yep.
Read it, see what it does.
Yep.
Like you don't necessarily want to like be reading it all the time, you know, like so if you're like four turns into like game 3, don't be like, hey, can I read your staging area? Like,
yeah,
you know, like as they come in, like. There's sort of there's a give and take. Like, you know, you definitely like if you're unfamiliar with the cards, like you want to like know what they do, but try to do it in a time considerate way.
Correct.
But yeah, but if there's like something that's happening that seems weird, basically just see like, wait, why is this happening? And you know, like they may have something that's like pretty simple and. You know, you can just sort of be like, oh, okay, like, whatever. Or if you're really not sure, like, if it really seems, like, weird, because UFS is pretty weird.
Pretty weird, yes.
Basically just be like, look, like, you know, I'm new, like, that seems weird, like, I just want to call a judge. And the person isn't, like, you know, yeah, like, if, like, that's the thing is, especially if you're just like, look, I'm new, I haven't seen this before, like, no one's going to really, like, begrudge you calling, like, the judge, because it's going to be like, all right, like, you know, this guy's never seen, like, a reversal before. Or, like, you know, this guy hasn't seen, like, you know, like, something what? Like, this comes in, I respond with this, I blow this up, I do this and the other thing, and it's just like, what?
Yeah.
So, so then you just put your hand up, like, call judge. Probably Ryan Pham will come talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you could just be like, hey, like, this is what happened. Like, he did this did this, you know, whatever, like, is this good or what should we do or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We'll let you know you're good and, you know, so on. I mean, this sort of is like for other stuff for
drawing too many cards.
So right, like if you drew too many cards, if you drew too few cards, I've done both of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's best to just the thing is like the tournament floor rules are sort of like they aren't always the same as what they used to, you know, as what you think they are.
Yeah.
So for like stuff like that, I'll call the judge on myself. I'll just be like, hey, like, I'm like, I did this in Atlanta with Goro. It was starting out a game. Obviously, like, he's a 4-hander. I played a lot of 5-handers, and my opponent was playing a 5-hander. So I drew up my opening hand. It was 5 cards. I like went to pick them up, and right as I like grabbed them in my hand, I was like, wait a minute, I definitely dealt out 5 cards. So I called Ryan and I was like, hey, like I have 5 cards. I haven't even looked at them yet, but I don't know what order they were. Like, I don't know what would be on top, what wouldn't. Like, what should we do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this – because, like, typically if you draw too many, you reveal your hand. Like, they pick a card, you discard it. And
you remove it. It's removed from game.
All right, you remove it, and then so there you go. Discard, remove. I don't know. We'll call the judge. So you'll get a warning for like drawing too many cards. In this case, it was like literally the start of the game, so he just had me like put my hand back in, reshuffle my deck, let my opponent like randomize it again, and then start over. So, but yeah, just stuff like that is good. And it also like gives like the judge an opportunity to just sort of note it, because if it's something that like is continually happening, like that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, just basically like stuff like that, like procedural issues, or you know, if somebody like plays a card that they can't play and makes a check, and all of a sudden like there's nothing like, you know, like you can't take it back because like you know what the card is.
Yeah. Like
that's just the kind of stuff like you just have to call a judge.
Or like when someone goes to draw a card and you want to cancel that, but they draw it too fast.
Yeah. I mean that's something I saw definitely noticed. It's like it's important for like a lot of things, especially things that involve like drawing cards, that involve making checks, anything like that. Like, it's good to just sort of be like, I'm about to do this. Like, do you have any responses?
Yeah.
Because like, if you just assume, if you like, there's a lot of sort of like time saving stuff that happens in like casual games where you're just like, all right, like I'm just doing my stuff, and like there isn't as much like back and forth.
Yeah.
And it may be because like this person doesn't revoke. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But like in a tournament, like you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like you really want to avoid doing stuff that like leads to like a bad game state.
Yeah.
So just asking something like that, like, do you have a response? No, cool, I'll draw my cards. And I think like other than that, I guess that's the other thing too, is like, so this is like a little bit tougher, but I would say in that sort of vein, like there's always sort of the issue of like when to like, if somebody's like, well, I want to like take this back, like that kind of like really depends. Like,
yeah.
It's like, if it's something that maybe like isn't that impactful, if it's something where it's like, you have a card or like something and it's like, oh, I didn't know that card was there, like something, like I want to do something different. That's kind of up to you, like there are certainly some, I know Chris had an example. Was it like Worlds or
what?
Nats?
Yeah.
Somebody, yeah.
When a guy activated 8,000 degrees and I killed him with Fueling Up and he wanted to take it back, and I was like, no, because you should know that this card does that. So
I mean, right, that's like obviously like a big impact. The thing is like realistically, like, and that's kind of one of those things too, where it's like if it gets like announced and you have something for it, and they're like, oh, in that case, I don't want to do whatever, like, kind of out of luck.
Yeah.
I mean, you really shouldn't like feel bad for just being like,
well, I have answers. Yeah, you shouldn't
like,
feel bad for
sorry,
having
man,
answers.
like,
yeah,
that's what these cards do. Like,
yeah,
like it's one thing if it's like, wait, you can't do that. Like, that's like we had something right. Like maybe I have a card like where I had like a card in your card pool that says like, no, you can't play that card.
Yeah.
Then sure, like if it was something that's like at a flip cost or whatever, like take it back. Like you can't do it.
Yeah.
But something where it's like, oh, you can do it, and it was a bad decision.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like that's the sort of the thing about, again, like locals, like casuals and stuff like that, is always just like, oh wait, yeah, oh whoops, like let's take it back, let's play the game like right, let whatever. And for something like a tournament and something like that, like really not sort of beholden to like be nice.
Yeah.
Like be respectful, but like you don't need to like help your opponent like beat you.
Yeah.
Or give them like get out of jail free cards when they make bad choices. Like that's the whole point. They made a bad choice. Like you should win.
At Worlds,
like you should have an advantage now.
Worlds this year in the side event, I had a guy who had just run. He's like, well, I'm going to play all my enhances. Just let me know if you have a response. Like, he would just run through everything. And I'm like, dude, you need to slow down, because if I have a response and you draw a card or something and we can't fix that, that looks bad on both of us. And I'm not going to get a warning because you don't want to take the time to play the game properly. So, and he got really mad about that. And he threw a big fit about it. And then ended up being that he had an illegal card in his deck, in his turbo deck, and I ended up winning the game anyways because I called the judge on it. So, anywho. But yeah, you want to play the game fast, but you also want to play the game properly and respectfully to your opponent. You don't want to just be like, well, I'm just going to fast play you the entire time, and don't let your opponent fast play you at all. So. Yeah,
and that's the thing, I guess, like, I feel like we got a little bit off track with the idea of, like, judge calls.
Sure.
The thing is, too, is, like, honestly, it's one of those things, like, even if your opponent's like, oh, well, it works like this, like, you really don't have to take their word for it.
No, you don't. You never have to.
Like, and that thing is, like, if you, like, legitimately, like, don't know, and your opponent's like, yeah, it works like this, and you're like, does it? Just call a judge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the thing is like, I'm not really trying to say that like people are out here like trying to like scam players or whatever, like trying to be like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Like, I don't think that UFS is typically like that cutthroat where people are like really like out to get people or anything, or like trying to like pull a fast one. I mean, I've seen it in other games for sure.
Oh yeah.
but it's just one of those things where, to be blunt, like, people don't actually know the rules that well. And so, like, the person who's doing something, like, they may fully believe that what they are doing, like, works, and it might not. Like, you might be getting, like, bad, like, advice from this person who's just like, oh, yeah, this works. Yeah. And if you're just like, all right, cool. And then, like, you're doing it later and someone goes, wait, judge, and they, call a judge on you.
And then you're like, that guy did it last round.
You're like, well, but that guy was doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, let's call out Thomas Gordon again. I've definitely played him and been like, in round like 4 or 5 of a tournament, he does something like, dude, you can't do that. Like, that's not what that card does. And he goes, oh, man, I've been doing that all day.
Oh, I remember that, yeah. I mean, also, don't forget to...
It's happened before. Like, it's happened multiple times.
Yeah.
And it's not even just him. I mean, I've seen plenty of people that are just like, oh, my opponent was doing this too. And it's just like, So. Also,
don't forget that all your stuff has to chain properly. In the vein of Thomas Gordon blunders, let's talk about chaining cards properly. Be sure you pay attention if you have cards that are off symbol that may not match. Like, you say you have like an out of your league, and you're primarily your character has all in fire, and all your cards primarily have all, but they don't a lot of them don't match with the fire symbol. You want to be careful when you play that out of your league. You want to make sure your card before it has fire, or your cards before it have fire to stop something. Just make sure you take your time to plan out your turn. Don't take forever, but plan out your turn.
Yeah, I mean, I know there was some stuff up in Rochester. I think there was someone who was primarily like death and had, or maybe evil, and had like spiders or something, and like basically like built a turn 1, and like they didn't even catch it until like turn like 2 or 3, and was like, wait, that shouldn't.
That sucks.
And like, I mean, at that point, like, right? I mean, I guess it depends on like what it is. I think like Kevin just didn't worry about it because he was like way ahead and was just like, I'm in anyway.
He didn't care. Yeah.
But straight, just stuff like that like just doesn't necessarily get like caught at the time.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's really the big stuff is like, don't feel bad about not letting your opponent take stuff back.
Yep. Don't feel bad about calling judge
if something's happening that you've never seen before and you aren't sure if it works.
Yep. Don't forget to fill out your deck list properly.
Make sure when you fill out your deck list, it's the right number of cards and the right names of cards.
Yep. Get enough sleep, and that's pretty much it. Play your games and have a fun day. It may be maddening if you're not doing well. It may be maddening if you are doing well because you have no idea why you're doing well. But try to have fun, especially if it's your first event, like your first UFS event, like major event. Try to have fun with it, and don't put. I guess have some expectations. Like, hey, I want to win. I want to top.
That's good.
Or
that's
I want to win,
yeah,
and stuff like that. So
I would say for sure, like, it's nice to have like goals.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll like typically have that at an event where I'm just like, all right, I'm going to this event, I'm playing this deck, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely isn't always I want to win.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like maybe it should be.
Yeah, it should.
But,
really,
like, there's definitely times where I play something I'm just like, I would like to like top with this.
Yeah.
But the thing is, something like that, like if you top, you can be like, all right, well now I'm here, so
better win.
Like, now that I'm here,
yeah.
my new goal is to like make it to top 4.
Yeah.
Or like my new goal is to win, or whatever.
I know my first event ever, which was Worlds 2013, 14, something like that. I wanted to break even. I wanted to be at least 500 with the record. I ended up.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
that's the thing too. Is like right. If you're new, like if you've never played in like a PTC or a major or something like that, like if your primary like experience is like playing at your local, that's like 5 dudes or whatever, and you're going to like some PTC, like if your expectation is I'm gonna win this whole thing, it's probably not like that.
It's nice to have that goal, but like, it's probably not gonna happen.
Right. And so that's the kind of thing. It's like it's good to start with something that like you think you can probably get. And like you said, it's like, all right, I'm going to this PTC, I want to go 3-2.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you get your 3rd win, you're like, sweet, I'm 3-2. Like now I'm trying to go 4-1.
Yep.
Now I'm trying to like, top. Now I'm trying to do whatever. And right, if you're close, if you end up close, if you're like, oh, I ended up like 2-3, or I ended up like 2-2-1, or something, like you're close.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then you can sort of be like, all right, like, what can I improve? Like, what can I do better next time?
Yep.
And that's something too, especially like after rounds. Unless it went to time, like, and you gotta like pack all your stuff up and get ready for the next round, or go to lunch, or do whatever. Like if you finish a match and you have like 15 or 20 minutes left or something, like you can probably like talk to the person and be like, hey, like, so like, what could I have done differently? Or, were there any big mistakes I made? Like, do you have any ideas? Like, just stuff like that. And typically, like, the other player will sort of like have like some sort of feedback.
Sure.
Like, I guess like especially like a PTC or something that's not like that big. It's something like a Worlds or a Nationals, like they might be a bit more preoccupied. But and I guess that sort of goes back, right? Especially like if you sort of started out with like, I'm new,
Mm-hmm.
like if they know ahead of time, like, oh, like I'm new, I'm getting like my feet under me, this is my first PTC. If you can definitely like ask for sort of feedback. So almost like a like a post interview. So
Yeah,
I'm like, hey, cool. So we just played around. Like
what can I do to make it better?
What could I do better in the future?
Yeah,
right. Just stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's usually not enough time. Like I know, like I've definitely had times where someone's just like, look at my deck, and just puts it out, and it's just like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah, sometimes definitely in between rounds you don't have time for a full deck analysis. Yeah. But we can give you people can give you quick pointers.
Do that like after a tournament.
Yeah.
If somebody's playing like the same character or like a similar symbol or something like that, and like if they didn't top, but like they seem like they're in a good mood, like go ahead now and just say like, hey, like I'm new, like I'm just checking out this, like, do you mind like taking a look at this deck I played? Like I went, 2-3, and I'm trying to like improve my deck. Like I'm trying to get like some new tech, whatever.
That also leads into the whole diversity thing. As a new player, don't be afraid of it, because it doesn't matter. Like you have to be the best anyways, and if you end up being the best that day, that's great. And if you top, that's great. But also,
I don't ever want to talk about the first.
I don't either, but but someone brought it up, is that on the Facebook thread, so I kind of want to. Is like, don't be afraid of it. Just do it. Just play who you want to play. Don't be afraid because Tim Keefe's playing Lilith. Don't be afraid, because you may do 1 point better than him. Sorry, Tim, for me bringing that up, but by one strength of schedule point or whatever, but.
Don't worry about Tim Keefe. You're Dave Wagner. You have cardboard.
Dave Wagner. Don't worry about that one. But yeah, don't worry. I would say, as speaking to new players specifically, don't limit your character choice because so and so is playing this guy. If you want to play your favorite character, play your favorite character and try to do the best you can with it.
I guess that's the thing. Like the big thing too is like, right. I mean, if your concern is, well, I'm playing this character I really like, but I'm worried, like, I'm going to go 4-1 and the other guy's going to go, like, 5-0.
Well, still get top cut prizes.
At that point, it's just like, dude, if you, like, are confident that your deck's going to go, like, at least 4-1, just freaking play it.
Just play it, dude.
Yeah. Like, the thing is they might get a bad matchup. They might get a bad draw. Like, like, it's just kind of one of those things where, right, if you realistically, like, think that your deck's good enough that you're going to go, like, 4-1, 5-1, something like that. Like, definitely don't worry about diversity.
Yeah,
like,
don't worry
anybody
about that.
can take a loss.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
All right. So, do we have anything else we'd want to cover? Other than I think we've covered pretty much.
There's a million things to cover, right?
Oh yeah, there was a million things on the thing, but my phone's about to die and I don't want to open it again. So we're trying. I think we've covered all the newer player just starting, and then we covered the new player going to a new event. I think we've covered all of that for the most part. I don't think there was. We covered the time management thing. We covered prepping for the event, all that fun stuff. Yeah, I think we pretty much covered the entire thread outside of the whole deck building thing, which, again, I will link that down in the description box below. Please watch that episode.
Yeah. If you want some advice about like your deck, the answer is it depends.
Yeah. There you go. I guess. Whatever. But yeah, so Yeah, so we have the South Carolina. So I guess in closing, we have the South Carolina PTC coming up on the 25th of this month.
Do you have Barrett's picks yet?
No, I don't have Barrett's picks yet because I keep asking him, he doesn't respond. So this time I'm going to send him the picture.
So what you're telling me
is that we're gonna pick for him.
We're gonna pick for him.
We're gonna pick for him, but not this week. We'll wait. We'll see. If he doesn't answer me by next Tuesday, which is the 21st, we will fill it out for him. And
sounds like Aaron Black.
We're going 1 for attendance. No, we're going 26 for attendance, which is 1 over Ashley.
No, what are you talking about? We're gonna go 52 for
52?
attendance.
Okay, we're going 52.
Why are you gonna give him any possibility?
Oh, that's true. We'll go 52. We'll give him Aaron Black. We'll give him Cherry. And we'll give him 10 diversities. That's what we'll do. Okay. So we'll do that. So Barrett, if you watch this stuff, which you should, because you should support the channel, give us your picks, please. And I'm gonna send him a message after we're done filming here, so we know, so he knows, because he needs to know, because we're all in a tight race, being all 5-5 and me at 6. So yeah, freedom, baby, freedom. But anywho, I guess that will probably end the episode. Like, comment, subscribe. Check us out on Patreon for early access to all Guile treatments, staging areas. We're gonna get back to doing the Patreon only streams since we have all the setup for it now.
Let's see.
Rockford PTC information. The playmat's being worked on. No new updates to it. Pre-registration should go up by the end of the week. I got to talk to the store. They kind of fumbled it last week because they were all out of town. So...
speaking of travel expenses, like apparently, what is it? It's the weekend of like Pitchfork Music Festival. Oh yeah,
for some reason there's some giant music festival. So get your tickets as soon as possible because it's only gonna get more expensive. I'm assuming. So presumably, yeah.
So
and I'm sorry about that. I did not know. I just didn't want to have it 4th of July weekend again because I thought tickets were bad that weekend, but I guess they weren't. So
was that last year?
That was last year, yeah.
Dude, last year was we should have booked the tickets early. Like they were so cheap, and then by the time we did it, they were not that cheap. But
well, that's your own fault, not anyone.
Yeah, it is. I didn't have my time off yet,
and
I was
true.
Just like,
that's true.
Oh wait, that's why I just got a ticket to Chicago, and I said hopefully I'll get off work, and I didn't, and I went. It was cheap.
That is the 3rd weekend in July. So if you're in the area or if you're free that weekend, please come. It's gonna be. It's usually.
What are the actual days?
It's the 23rd, 24th. No, it is.
I guess it's the 3rd weekend.
It is the 19th, 20th, and 21st. So
all right.
The 20th is the actual PTC. The top cuts is good. We're gonna try to do as much as possible. We always start early in Rockford. We always start registration at 9. Tournament starts at 10. We're always early. We always get in top 8. We're going to try to push for top 4 and get that done. So finals is just Sunday because we have that should be a pre-release weekend for the new set. And we're going to do a teams draft box. So that information will be up on the event page, but you'll get 2 other buddies, you get a box, you build 3 decks, you play teams. We'll figure something out for pricing. So and that should be awesome and fun. So it's always a blast. Rockford's turned into one of the premier stops on the PTC circuit. So if not the best. Sorry guys.
Obviously the best.
Yeah, it is because it's the one I run. Yeah. But anywho. Yeah, so that's it. So everyone have a good night. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.